Hello, everyone, and welcome to Move, Crush, Count. Today's interview is sponsored by J&L Marketing. J&L is a digital and direct marketing agency that delivers results with strategies that help you outsmart competitors so you don't have to outspend them. One way to outsmart competitors is to know not what they're advertising. It's one thing to know what they are and what they're not advertising. It's not about what they're advertising, but which offers are their best performing ads. Which ads are stealing market share from you, and where are your biggest opportunities online? So I want you to check out jnlmarketing.com. They can save you hours of time by doing a free competitive analysis that'll deliver the most actionable, tactical, and timely digital marketing tips that you need so you can move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. The title of today's interview is Improving Underperforming Companies, How to Succeed Fast. My name is Scott Joseph, and today I'm going to be talking with a true expert when it comes to improving underperforming companies fast, Brad Mugg. He's going to be sharing his tips, his tricks, his secrets that I believe every business leader needs to shortcut their way to record-breaking success and get to the results you really want faster. Welcome, Brad Mugg.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be on the program today. It's going to be awesome.
We've known each other for a long time. I'm excited. We've also got as a special and, I don't want to say the word common, but a frequent guest of the program, right? The solutionist himself from, I always say the great state, but it's really called the Garden State, New Jersey. Sandy, why do they call it the Garden State? When I think of New Jersey, I don't think of a bunch of gardens.
Well, I don't either. I actually use different spelling, buddy. I use the Guardin with the little apostrophe at the end, the Garden State. Like we're guarding the state, if you will, these days. We're under attack by the crazy New Jersey.
All right. So when I think of New Jersey, all I think of, my first two things that come to my mind are obviously Sinatra and Springsteen. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, I think Tony Soprano could be tossed in there as well.
That's right.
It's probably the most underrated state in the union, in my humble opinion. There's a lot that has come out of New Jersey, and it doesn't get nearly enough credit where credit is deserved. However, that said, I'm hightailing it out of this state very shortly.
Well, I don't want to. Well, you've got to pay that. You're going to have to figure out how to offset that high leave the state penalty that you have. But let me ask you a question. When you say it's a great state, and I think it's important that the audience knows that Sandy claims. And so for all you people in Florida, Brad, you're out in California.
Right.
So Brad, calm down. I don't want you to get too hysterical with this. Sandy claims, all right, that New Jersey has the best beaches. All right. I'm used to going to the Caribbean. I'm used to going to places like that and just seeing this beautiful water. I don't want to go to a beach where I can't dip my toe in because the water is 62 degrees.
Okay, Scott, that's fair.
Brad, as you and I both know, Brad, because we roll up our sleeves. We're working men, you and I.
Right.
Scott is the aristocrat of the group. Yep. And so, once he gets the hair and nails done, then it's time to hit the pristine beaches of the Caribbean. I understand. But I will tell you that the beaches in New Jersey, again, don't get enough credit.
Is that right?
That's cool. A fact.
That's cool.
All right. So, Brad, you've got an incredible track record for fast turnarounds. You've graciously agreed to do this interview and share with us a lot of cool tips and tricks that can really accelerate our audience's results so you can help everyone working for the greater good. To me, it's all about working for the greater good of clients in the business. I want to thank you again for joining us and sharing with the MCC Nation. Let's jump right in. My first set of questions is really more or less, let's get the audience introduced to who you are, what your background is, what your education is, and then we can jump right into some of the specific things that you do when you first take over a new business. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Absolutely.
All right. So tell us a little bit.
Go
ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, tell us a little bit about your background, your education, your experience when it comes to improving companies.
Yeah, I've been in the Honda business for almost 30 years and always passionate about Hondas. Been in the car business all my life. Grew up in the body shop business, had a used car lot. and started working for the Bob Rorman Auto Group back in 1998 for his Honda store. And I would say education-wise, he's the best teacher I've ever seen, ever. The guy was absolutely incredible. Working under that man, he taught me so much so early, and I'm very, very thankful for that. I went to NADA school early on as well, which is a great education there. And then also part of my education, Purdue University in college. But yeah, this car business has been my passion. I ran his Honda store for 10 years in Indiana. Went to a Chicago store, ran his Honda store there for 3 years, which was the largest Honda store in the Midwest. A lot of fun. Went to California, opportunity to run the largest Honda store in the country. Did that for 9 years. Then we bought a little Honda store with the Norm Reeves Group. The little store was doing 150 cars. We got that up to 500. Had that for 4.5 years, and then sold out of that. Right now, currently downtown LA Honda, which when I got introduced to this opportunity to be a partner in this deal, two things I said: I'm not going back to California, and I'm definitely not going to downtown LA. And here I am. But I got to tell you, it's the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. This organization is phenomenal. This store is amazing, and it's got a big, big future ahead of it. So that's kind of a quick version of where I'm at, but always Honda.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing there, and that's where we discussed having you on the show. One of the reasons I wanted to do it is I thought, you know what, we really haven't done a show that talks about some quick things or strategies that people do to turn things around or to take them to the next level, because you've done things with various in different scenarios, but all have leveled up. So when you brought up the Norm Reeves, that was already a good store, right? But you took it to a much higher level. And so, whereas right now you've got in downtown LA, I don't want to say the store was a bad store, but it was a much bigger turnaround project. But the things that you did were immediate. And so, the results happened within months. And so to me, it's important to talk about those two different things, because let's equate it to golf. If I go out and shoot and I'm shooting 100, it's very easy for me.
Front nine.
That's what I'll go out and I'll tell my brother, my brother's a good golfer. And I told him last night, I said, Tom, if I golf as much as you, I destroy you. I said, I just lost to you by one. I said, I haven't picked up a club since April. I said, you're picking up and hitting balls every day. I said, I would destroy you if I had focus and actually went out there and tried. But
Scott, with all due respect, I spoke to Tom after that conversation. He said, you do actually play just as much golf as he does. You just swing the club more often in fewer rounds. And so
I tell him that's what he says. Well, that was only through this many holes. I told him, I said, Tom, I haven't picked up you just beat me by one. I haven't picked up a club since April. I just had, and this is going to be TMI, but I just had a vasectomy. I made the things. I had major surgery. I said I had major surgery. All right. I said I'm coming off the bench, and I come out and it's like Tiger. It's not different than Tiger making the cut at the Masters and the PGA Championships. There's a lot of similarities. So,
although I understand that the club length is not an issue for him the way it is for you,
You always throw a joke out that just silences me instantly, Sandy.
I love it.
But
why don't we get to the question, which I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt, but to your point, Brad does deliver incredible results, and it happens so damn quickly. What is the first thing you focus on, buddy? Like, where do you go?
Well, hold on. The reason I wanted to bring this up, I've got into this golf thing, is because of this. It's easy for a golfer to go from 100 to 90, and which would be similar to what you're doing right now in downtown LA. So for the people listening, there might be a lot of business leaders out there saying, well, anybody can take a broken business and turn it around. That's much easier, but that's not all necessarily true, because if everyone can do it, there wouldn't be a lot of broken businesses. Mm-hmm. But it's much harder to take a situation like, say, what you did with Norm Reeves, who was already cranking, and then take it to a much higher level as well. And then you threw in the other store that you had down there, starting off with 100 something cars a month and almost increasing it 5 times in short order as well. And so when someone can take the same, I don't want to say the same effort because it probably takes more effort, but the same people, right, and go in and immediately impact change in a positive, the way you've done it, it grabs my attention right away. So back to what Sandy was just saying, what is a tip? Let's start right out of the gate. What's a tip that you wish that you started working on and doing now, that you wish someone had told you way back in the day? Let's take it all the way back to Rohrman days, I guess, and say, what's one thing that you do instantly when you go in that, man, if you'd known this 20, 30 years ago, you'd be 10, 20 years ahead?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is building a culture and getting, everyone on the same page and getting everyone involved, knowing that everyone matters. And making sure that no matter if they're the valet or the top sales manager or the service director, whatever the case may be, is making sure they know that they matter and they're an important part of the puzzle. They're an important piece of the puzzle. Very, very important part of the whole deal. And if you get everyone, I'd say that the biggest thing is having a goal and making sure that everyone knows what that goal is and making sure it's a part of their goal of where they're trying to get to. And getting the entire buy-in of the organization as quickly as you possibly can, right? And, getting rid of the ones that are not going to buy in as quickly as you possibly can and bringing in more of the people that believe. And
let's get into some specifics on that. So when you talk about getting everybody on the same page and starting with a goal and mission that you might have, how are you communicating that? How often are you doing it? What's the different ways you're communicating it to where it actually sticks? Because I think a lot of mistakes business leaders make is they go in, they say, this is our goal. This is our mission. They might have one meeting. They might send out an email. And then they hope that everybody got it and starts doing it. And then they get frustrated when no one does.
Well, the first thing I do every single morning is measure yesterday, and see what we did great yesterday and see what we fell short on yesterday. I've already done that this morning. It's the first thing I do every single morning. Then the first thing I do as the managers come in, because I like to get in early before them, as they come in, I sit down with them, do one-on-ones and say, hey, look, here's where we missed it. Here's what we got to accomplish today, right? And let's make sure we get it done. And then you got to measure it through that day, right? And so it's daily communication, constantly walking through the store. Hey, where are we at so far? How are we doing towards our goal? But it's the daily goals that's going to get you the monthly goal, right? So measure every moment is what I really, really think is super important. And making sure everyone knows you're measuring every moment. And you're always asking questions you know the answer to, right? Hey, how many calls we have out today? How many appointments we have today? Making sure they know. My old boss, I keep talking about Bob Rohrman. I keep bringing his name up. I've done that my entire life because, he's been the old school daytimers back in the day. If he called you up and if you didn't know exactly where you were, you have some explaining to do. And he instilled that in me early. And I really, really enjoy. I'm so glad he did because it just works.
Let me ask you something. Knowing the auto business the way I did, did he train you on that and say this is what, or did you learn the hard way by him asking you a few questions, not knowing the answers, and saying, "All right, tomorrow I'm gonna have that answer"?
It's exactly it. He is the toughest guy to work for. God rest his soul. But he was the tough guy to work for. But I tell you what, he taught people very, very well, very, very fast, right? And you never made that same mistake twice. If you did, you just didn't work for him anymore. That's exactly how it worked.
When I think about turnarounds or leveling up businesses, it's not too far removed from a merger or an acquisition when one company buys the other. And you rarely hear how two different cultures merge together successfully. You hear all the horror stories, right? Yeah. If you're on LinkedIn, you start seeing all the people leaving companies that got bought out and stuff like that because they don't like the management and they don't like the change and stuff like that. So when you're taking over a business and you're trying to level it up, it's not really different from that because you're going in with new processes. You're a change, right? You've got a different way of doing things. So for you to be successful, I think says a lot. My question is to get everybody rowing in the same direction and to get everybody bought in and working towards that common goal that you said, the vision and developing the culture. How long does that typically take before you're like, you know what, this is cranking along the way we want?
I think it can be done successfully within 90 days. It's you got to analyze what you're up against. You got to analyze all the people around you. You got to sit down with them, get to know them, find out, what they believe in, and get the negativity out of the store. That's the first thing I did here was, I had a few people that did not belong here, and I got them gone quick because, you either got the right attitude or you either have the right attitude, excuse me, or you don't have the right attitude. And I keep the ones around me that have the right attitude. And even if they're short on skill, if they have the attitude, I can help them and bring them along and get their skill level where it needs to be. But you can't train attitude. You just can't. You can try. Yeah. Occasionally you'll get someone that'll change, but most of the time you just, it's instilled in them, unfortunately.
Brad, there's a great book out there called Sacred Cows Make the Best Hamburgers. I don't know if you've read it, but it speaks right to what you're talking about. You're going in, I think you're identifying leaders, whether they've got a title or not. You're looking for people that want to lead from the front of the pack, that are willing to adapt and adopt to some of the changes that you bring to the organization. And very often, what we'll see is that if you're going in to fix a broken business, it didn't break overnight. It broke over time.
Right.
And it kind of fell apart over time. And so to allow the same leadership that now I use that word in quotations, the same leadership to remain and hang around when they're just not getting it, I would assume is the number one cardinal sin of going in to turn an operation around.
100%. I totally agree with you, Sandy. I mean, it's 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're turning around this culture, what's the best way? If you had to advise a business leader one-on-one, what's the best way for them to put this tip into action?
Well, I mean, I
know. Well, you said you meet with everybody every day, and you go over.
I think you sit down one-on-ones with every one of your teammates, and you figure out what their goals are, and see if they're in line with yours. Right. I mean, for example, this store was selling 100 used cars a month consistently. And I sat down with the used car director. I said, "Hey, what do you think of your performance?" He goes, "Well, I think we've been doing a pretty decent job." I go, "This store should be doing a lot more than 100 cars. We should have a goal of 250." I go, "But we first got to get to 200 consistently." And the last 90 days we hit 200 cars. And he didn't believe it, see it, or was never guided or directed to want more. And granted, some things have fallen in our favor because the new car inventories are not around, and the only way we're going to survive is used cars, right? But you've got to get them to believe in much more, because if the average store today selling 100 used cars is a decent job, right? But it's not acceptable in this store,
Brad, do you ever find yourself during an initial one-on-one with the leadership team of the store that you're going into, where you say to yourself, this person just isn't going to make it, and you make a split second decision right then and there to say, listen, we just have no congruency in terms of where I see this store going and what your role is going to be. This is probably not the position for you. Maybe we'll look for another spot within the organization, or maybe it's time for you to take a look at something else and give them a soft landing on their way out. Is that something you do?
It is. I usually give at least 30 days just to make sure I see everything. Because you can't do it instantly with a sit down. You got to talk to them, and then you got to see what they do, and then you got to give them some tips and direction, and see if they'll follow that tip and direction. Mm-hmm. And some of them just won't do it, and then I just pull the plug instantly. And I try to either find another position for them, or at least offer them a position if they're granted that, if they deserve that. And then a lot of times though, it's just we got to get that out of the store, because it's not. It's a negative effect on the store.
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing worse than locker room lawyers. So how often, I'm curious, listen, it's easy for the business leader to go in and say, this person's negative. We've given them every opportunity to do this the right way, or at least to get on board, have the same goal and have the same vision and really want to work towards that, if they're not a good performer, if they don't put up the good numbers. But how often has it happened to where you've had to let go of someone that might have the bad attitude or be negative that's putting up great numbers?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. I've definitely parted ways with my best salespeople in my tenure, only because they hurt the culture.
Correct.
Someone else is going to pick those cars up. I'm not worried about it. But when you get rid of a guy that's selling 50 cars a month because he's not doing it the right way, if you let him go, everyone's going to say, well, that's acceptable here. And you can't allow that to get into your culture.
Correct.
So you sometimes you have to let go the big performers. Unfortunately, I just had to do that with a finance manager, only because I wasn't aligned with the way they were handling my guests. And I had to sit down. I had to finally say, hey, this isn't working out for us. But you got to get rid of that as quick as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
What's a cool trick you figured out or discovered along the way when it comes to improving underperforming companies that you think would help the audience?
Getting the buy-in from everyone as quickly as you possibly can, and getting everyone rowing the same direction, right? And making sure you have all the right players in the right places as quickly as you possibly can. And then measure every single moment, every single day. Don't micromanage. Let them do their job, but coach them, help them, and push them.
Get that on there. I guess where I'm going with that is this. I sit here and I kind of want you to go into a little bit more detail on this in this way. You go in, you want to make change. Listen, even in companies that are cranking, even in companies that doesn't matter if they're cranking or struggling, you can go in and just want to do a different change in a process. You could have no changeover in management, no changeover. Every business leader wants to do some type of thing because they think it's going to take them to the next level. And then they start changing, whether it might be a comp plan. It could be a change in a process and how we're selling. A lot of things, a lot of brick and mortar businesses are moving to more online type sales, which obviously changed the client experience. They've got to work on client experience and how to humanize that and change that process to make it effective. Right. So there's always pushback on that. And so what you've been able to do, it's one thing to say to get everybody on the same page, right? But you do it successfully everywhere you go. So what I'm looking for is I want to know what are the little things that you do behind the scenes that get that buy-in? Why are you so persuasive with people? Because there are a lot of successful business leaders that really struggle with this.
It comes from your heart, and you got to genuinely care about every single person that is on your team. And you got to show that you genuinely care to every single person on your team all the time. You got to be doing your dealership walkthroughs and making sure that everyone knows you're there and you care. And you got to have that door wide open all the time and never hide from anyone. Always drop everything you're doing when an employee approaches you. It's hard to do. It's like if an employee comes into my office, you've got 500 emails you've got to get to, right? You got to step away from everything and do the one-on-one with them and take that 5 minutes that goes a mile. And I think that's one thing that I've really enjoyed is genuinely caring about your people. I mean, genuinely caring about your people. And if you genuinely care about your people, they'll go to bat for you all day long. But you can't fake it. You can't go in and just try it. You got to genuinely have it in your heart. And I think that's really helped me a lot in just caring about others, man. Everyone's got a heartbeat, and you got to care about that,
So I love what you're saying there. And what it brings to me is like managers, leaders, executives can get very busy and they can lose their patience, right? And all of a sudden, maybe it's time I sit down with someone and rather than going through the process of explaining why I might want something a certain way and the importance of it and the impact it might have on a client or the business and them personally. Sometimes the busy person that doesn't have a lot of time or patience might get short and be just like, I just need you to do it this way. And then there's not enough instruction. There's not enough detail. And then maybe it doesn't get done right. And then all of a sudden the next communication is, why wasn't this done the way I wanted it done? Right. And then it goes down that little spiral. I guess my question to you then is, what secret do you have when it comes to, if you're talking about caring with if the number one trick and tool or trick and tip that you wish is to get everybody rowing in the same direction and getting their buy-in, and you're saying, show that you care. Let's say you have a performance issue. All right. But there's a good employee. All right. You've got a good employee. You've already done your meetings. You've identified them as, this is somebody we want on this bus, right? They're in the right seat, but you got some performance issues. We all have life's challenges, our personal lives, no matter, we'd like to think that they never impact our business, but people go through a lot of stuff in their personal lives that could impact their performance, right? So let's say that's happening. You got a great employee. You've got to correct that. So what's a secret you do to do it the right way, to keep their vision locked in and to get them back on track?
Well, you got to slow down and speed up, right? You got to slow down and take the time and spend with the people that need it, right? And I can think of a situation exactly like you're talking about right now. And I sit down with that person and I have a one-on-one and I reiterate our expectations of what we need for success, go over the things that they're challenged by, and find out why they're not succeeding in these areas. And a lot of times you're right. A lot of stuff's going on in our world, man. We have a lot of personal stuff going on. Everyone does.
Yeah.
Every single one of us, right? And sometimes you just got to sit down and go over things with them from a personal side too, and saying, hey, what can I do to help you there? Is there something I can do to help you there to get where you need to get to here? Because that clearly is affecting what you're trying to accomplish here. And you got to keep them separate, right? And it's not easy to do, but it's a lot of coaching. And if they don't, if once it's to sit down and just the coaching verbally, and then you got to get serious. You got to write them up and say, hey, listen, buddy, it's again, let me reiterate our goal here. And that usually gets their attention. That usually gets them bought in. That usually gets them on board. And that usually gets them in the right direction. And if it doesn't, then you have a problem, right? Then you have to make a decision, tough decision.
Yeah. When we're trying to improve performance, we use a sandwich technique. And when we're doing it well, sometimes we skip to just the middle of the sandwich. But you sandwich obviously with a compliment. What are they doing really well? Why do you like them in the position? Why you like them within the company? All the things they add to the culture, and when they're operating at a high level, how it impacts the client and in the company. Then obviously in the middle of that sandwich, you got to talk about where there needs to be some improvements right now, right? And then you finish back on the positive. Or do you use any of those type of techniques? Or do you?
Yeah, I do. But by the time I'm sitting down with someone and doing some coaching, they already know. They know why they're sitting down there. Because I've given them enough communication. I've given them enough communication to know. So when they sit down, they already know all the great things they're doing, because you know what? I'm always rewarding them and complimenting them, right? Hey, great job on that. Great job on that. Keep doing that, man. Go, high five, all that stuff, building that culture of excitement, can't wait to get here and don't want to leave kind of thing, right? That's right. What you want in all your people, right? But that's what I continually do. So by the time they're sitting down, they know where they're falling short, and they're disappointed in themselves, right? And hey, we reset them, right? Reset them. We talk about how we're going to get there. We have a plan. We have a plan to get them where they need to go, and we have a well-executed, well-explained plan to where when they walk out of that conversation, there's no gray. It's black and white, and they know exactly what's got to take place. And then it's fun to watch them succeed and do that. And not all of them do, right? Not all of them. Some just can't get it, But I remember one manager I had one time, and was doing a lot of things wrong. It was a parts department, doing a lot of things wrong in his department. Finally, I sat down with him. I went over all these bullet points. I said, look, here's all the things you have to improve on. And these are non-negotiables, by the way. They're non-negotiables. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit down every month, and we're going to go through every single one of these items, and we're going to do it until we get it right. Right? And literally 6 months, we sat down every month for 6 months. And to watch that person that I didn't think at first, I thought, there's no way he's going to get there. I did not want to believe, but that was a lot of things that had to happen. He had to change his entire business strategy in the department. And after 6 months, we were able to look back and say, wow, what an impact that had on this guy, to where that guy's still in that same position. And I haven't been at that store for 7 years. And watching that guy going from being mediocre to being a top performer, this is unusual, by the way. But to see that and to be a part of that and to watch him succeed put a big smile on my face and his too, So it was just a neat experience. And that doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, boy, it feels good,
Brad, you speak to something I call reciprocal accountability, because it does require leaders within an organization to be held accountable to do exactly what you just talked about, where you're willing to take the time and do the little things consistently over a period of time to help develop the talent. Okay. Sometimes talent that surprises you, which is always the best surprise, the ones that you don't think are going to make it, the ones that surprise you in a positive way. We all have our fair share of the ones that surprise us in an unpleasant way, where we think we've got a superstar and they don't have the mindset or the intestinal fortitude to do the little things that they need to do. But I love what you just talked about. You spent the time over 6 months and you were consistent, and you holding them accountable was in essence reciprocally holding you accountable as a leader. I love it. Such a great point.
And you set the date for the next meeting at the end of that meeting, right? So you never miss. They know it's coming, and they know what day it's coming, and they want to make you proud because they want to make themselves proud, right?
Yep.
And it's a neat thing. It really, really is. But I think the biggest thing in this business, it all comes down to attitude, and a lot of people manage based on what they're thinking right now, as opposed to the big picture. A negative leader can come into a store and destroy the day, because they're having a bad day. And I think the key is it's game on. You got to have your game face on. You got to be ready to go. You got to be excited, and you cannot ever change. And people that do the ups and downs and the moods, they're never going to get there. You got to come in with game on, game face. Let's go every single day, all the time. And I think that's the hardest thing that people face, is to be able to do that. And it doesn't come natural. People will say, how come you're so positive? Because I work on it. I work on it every day. I work on it when I get up. I work on it when I'm here. I get faced and hit with 2 or 3 negative things, and you shake it off, right? And you go, okay, let's go. You just got to have that driven mindset that you're going to do everything it takes to get where you want to go.
Brad, let me ask a question. As a kid growing up, what sports did you play?
Wrestling.
You were a wrestler. Okay.
Yeah.
So that helps you develop a ironclad mindset.
It does.
Mano a mano.
Yeah. It trained me a lot of discipline. The one thing I wish I would have done is military, but because of discipline, right? Anytime anyone's in the military that comes in interviews, I find a place for that person.
Yeah.
Because they've got that discipline, man, that you just can't get. You know what I mean?
All
so
right.
it's something you got to force yourself.
Amen.
For those that are just listening to this podcast and not watching the video version, Brad is a former wrestler. What you're not seeing is his ears are just cauliflower ears.
Headgear, man. I wear the headgear. Otherwise, I'd have ears twice the size.
You would never look at his ears and say he's a wrestler. So maybe he was a bad wrestler. I don't know, but
or maybe he just wore his headgear, Scott. Maybe he wore headgear.
That's right. All right. So what I'm hearing from this, all right, is I'm going to go back because you used the word care a lot. And I think a lot of mistakes that business leaders go, I'll tell you what, I'm very guilty of this. So a lot of times when I talk about I'm busy and I take the shortcut, right?
Right.
I have to catch myself doing that, because when you say you care, it's easier for you to have that conversation at the end, because like you said, they already know why they're there, which, by the way, reinforces the care, because the only way that can happen is you're demonstrating you care. You're not saying it. You're demonstrating through more frequent communication, good and bad, all the way through. So when that conversation has to come through, it's easier. And then the other thing that popped out to me, and I don't know if you noticed this, but when you talked about how it made you feel when that conversation helped that person get to where they needed to be and wanted to be, think about this as a leader, right? It's easy. You talk about wanting to stay positive, having that energy and having all that. It's a lot easier to do that. That is one of the way you whether you know it or not, you're exercising that muscle and building that, because you're conditioning yourself that these conversations lead to this for me.
Right.
Not just that person, but it makes me feel great too, which makes you probably want to do all the things that you're talking about or have mentioned that much more.
Yeah, I mean, no teammate wants to let the team down, right? And if you build that excitement, our goal is to be number one in the country, and I'm a believer this store is going to be number one in the country, and I've got everyone in the store believing that, because we're always pushing that and talking about that, and right now we're limited on inventory, so we can't get there right now, but when the time comes when everyone has the same number of cars on the ground, we will find a way to sell more. And we've got everyone chanting that, and when we talk in our sales meetings, we chant it. We our managers meetings, we're talking about it. We're always talking about, hey, how are we going to get to the next level? And as we've grown this store, it's been so much fun. Everyone's seeing it and feeling it. And hey, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win, right?
Yep.
There's nothing better
That's
than
right.
winning. Right. And when you have everyone on the team wanting to win and wanting to get to the next level and say, hey, guess what we did this month, guys? Everyone, applauding and with excitement, and it makes the environment a lot of fun. And I would say, you got to come and see the store and walk into this place, because, my vendors that come in, they go, what's going on here? It feels like something's going on all the time, and it's when you build that in the store, it takes a lot of effort from everyone. But when you build that in the store, it's just unstoppable.
Anybody that's paying attention can walk into any brick and mortar business, or even online. You can tell the difference just based on the interaction you might either have with someone. You can tell the difference from a store that's thriving and growing versus one that's stagnant or declining, just by the people, just by the energy. If that's all you're going to focus in on, how's this make me feel when I come in here? Is it people flying around, bouncing around with a lot of energy? Are they happy? Are they greeting people that you can tell they want to be there? I mean, it's just night and day. And so I always talk about Grant Cardone. I went down to one of his, he invited me down to one of his meetings. He does these every day. And I told him in our podcast interview, I said, that's the most impressive morning meeting I've ever seen. I was so pumped up. I came back to my own company. I said, all right, we got to do this. We got to do this. It's over the top. I mean, he's got DJ, he's got everything in there to put piping in sounds and this and that. But we have a mutual friend who told me you have a kick-ass meeting that you do every day. And so, but he didn't give me all the details. So I want to hear what you do on the daily with this meeting that makes it so great.
Well, okay. So we do a couple of things. We do training every single day. We do it at 9:15 and at 2:15. Every single day we do training twice, right?
Oh, wow.
The morning sales team and the afternoon sales team. Okay. I'm just talking sales right now. Now, our weekly meeting is what he's talking about. Every single Friday, right? We do have the showroom cranking the music as loud as it can get, right? That's how we start the meeting off. We have someone open it up, which gets the crowd roaring, if you will. And we always do some kind of exercise with the sales staff that we all learn from, right? And we have fun doing it. It's always a lot of fun. I mean, I think everyone's favorite day is Friday morning at 8:30, right? And then we all get together. We'll do whatever exercise we might do, and then and then we'll have all the managers talk, and then we'll close out the meeting, and it's pretty rowdy and crazy when we close out the meeting. It's a lot of crazy chants, and we've got certain people doing certain things, but it's just a fire up session, man. We our weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is our big 3 days, and we always put all our focus on that, and we get the team roaring and fired up and excited, get the hearts beating, and everyone just has a lot of fun with it. But yeah, it's good stuff.
SJ, there's another Jersey guy. They call him the Tuna, Bill Parcells, and he had a very famous quote. He said, you are what your record says you are. And I think, to kind of borrow heavily from that is you are what your culture demonstrates you are, and it's impossible to hide it. Yeah. And so, Brad, let me ask you this: do you create within your culture almost a cast of characters where people kind of know what their role is, identify as a particular character within your operation, and that's kind of their thing, and that's where they tend to kind of take ownership of their little piece of the culture that you build?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We have certain people that just grab hold of it. Some do better than others, right? Some love it. I mean, some just really get excited about it, right? I mean, we do our birthday celebration every third Friday, and everyone comes and we all sing happy birthday and bring the people up each month. And that everyone just loves the heck out of that. Now we added to that to where now we have a superstar awards that I've done in other previous businesses. And, we recognize the superstars and they spin the wheel, and sure enough, it's anywhere from $25 to $500 on the wheel. And sure enough, this last Friday, guy spins the wheel, gets 500. The whole crowd roars. I mean, it's and certain people play roles in that as well, right? Certain people do that, and it's cool how people take ownership, if you will. Knowing that ownership that they're taking is an important piece of the puzzle, an important part of what we're trying to accomplish, right? I got a guy that closes every single meeting, and when he closes it, I'll videotape Friday's meeting this Friday. And send it to you guys. It's a hoot. It's an absolute hoot.
Hey, do that. We'll put that into some of the B-roll.
Yeah. Good idea.
So I'll do that. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. But here's the thing. We never have a negative meeting ever, no matter what the meeting is. No matter what.
I love it.
And the reason is, a lot of people will go into a sales meeting and have a fire ups meeting to where they're complaining about this going on, that going on. What's two guys doing it, and now you're disrupting 30 other guys because two guys are doing it? No, those two guys get sat down one-on-one, and we coach them individually, and there's no such thing as a negative meeting. It's impossible to have here. We won't allow it. We talk about it all the time. Hey, you brought up that comment in the meeting. Well, you should have brought that up in that meeting. That's not
another good tip.
Yeah, that's not for that meeting. That's for the one-on-one for the one guy that screwed up, not for the entire staff. Just because one guy parked the car in the wrong spot, you want to tell everyone, "Hey, stop parking the car in the wrong spot." Say, "Come on, man, that's not how you create a positive environment."
Yep,
I've made those mistakes myself, and so how many times as business leader have you got one or two people creating issues, so you create a process or a rule.
Right.
For
right.
that, next thing you know, you got a pay plan that's got this much. You could stack the papers this high, just because to cover all the loopholes in the rules that one or two people created.
It's so true, and it happens all the time in business, and it's sad because I would say that's probably one of the easiest things to fix, to where you can totally change the culture. Because who wants to go to a meeting knowing it's going to be a beat up session? Nobody. And I bet you half the car dealers today, and I don't want to be rude like that. I shouldn't say it that way. Let's just
this is any business, Brad. This is any business.
I've been in real estate offices, insurance offices. It doesn't matter. And usually the negative sales meeting centers around one experience that was had over the course of a week, and everybody's going to have to listen to it. And so I came up in the business that way. There would be Saturday morning meetings you would just dread walking out of. I especially if I was in the F&I box. I spent 5.5 years in the F&I box, and when we came out of a Saturday morning meeting that nobody wanted to have, I would sit there and go, "Geez, there goes my day," because my guys aren't going to be cranking on the showroom floor, excited to sell. And we created a property, Brett. You probably get a kick out of this. I created a property that I do for clients called the Saturday morning meeting you wish you had. Right. And the whole idea behind it was I wanted, I go in and I want it to be the kind of meeting that everybody walks out of there ready to run through a brick wall. And if it's a store that doesn't necessarily have that kind of a meeting, it's the greatest lesson you can impart to them. It's like, this should happen every day.
You're so right, Sandy. You're so right. And we create the culture, right? We create it. It's up to us, man. And if you can just, do it right from the beginning, always, it's going to be your business runs a lot easier. My favorite thing is as of late too, it's been a fun run, the car business right now. But, we go to our sales meeting on Friday, and then after that we have our manager meeting, and talk about a lot of laughter and a lot of fun, a lot of excitement in those meetings. There's, when you got everyone doing the right thing and everyone bought in to doing the right thing, those meetings become a lot of fun.
Right.
It's not like we got to sit there and say, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. It's like, hey man, I want to compliment you guys on what you're doing. You guys are killing it. You guys are like unbelievable what you're doing. Now let's go do it again this weekend, because it all matters, right? And send them off in a positive way so okay, now you're right. Not only do you want to do it with your sales staff, you got to do your management staff too, right? All the time. Because everyone wants direction. Everyone wants direction. Yeah. They want direction. But if you don't give it to them in a positive way, you're going to get what you don't want.
I mean, think of just the cultural shift with just the tip. The tips, you just lopped about 5 tips right there without me asking a single question, which makes this interview outstanding because it takes all the pressure off of me. I love it. 5 tips right there, but I just want to point this out. I want you to think about, if you're in the audience, just the different, because everybody, it's common knowledge, and there's memes out there. There's all kinds of jokes out there of, oh, another meeting. I hate going to meetings. I hate doing it. What would it do to your culture if everyone actually looked forward to meetings, right? And got pumped from them and enjoyed them. And that was one of the highlights of their day. What impact would that immediately have on your culture? I mean, think about that.
100%.
I love it.
Well, I think what Brad is saying is that, great leaders will use behavior to change results and never allow results to change their behavior. Right. And so that's where you drive, I think, the kind of results that he delivers,
Well said, Sandy.
Yeah, that's why Sandy's on here.
It's a good thing he's on here.
It's not for my good looks, Brad, as you can tell.
It's for the more intelligent section of our audience, the people that have the higher vocabulary, that use all the big words. Sandy he's meant there, so those people get a lot out of the show as well. So let me ask you, do you think it's easier or harder today for a business leader to go in and impact change in a positive way?
I think it's no different. I don't think that yesterday, today, tomorrow, it's no different. It's all in the people. It's all in how you care for them. It's all in how you respect them. It's all in how you believe in them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I think you might be, I've asked that question here and there on a bunch of different shows, and I think you're the first person that's ever said it's the same. And so many people want to say things are different. Listen, selling is selling.
Right.
I always say this. People say, well, you used to say selling. The one thing the auto business taught me very much, and I integrated it into any business I've ever been involved with. If you could sell cars, you can sell anything, because in selling cars, you're not only selling the vehicle, you also got to sell the person on why their trade might not be worth as much. I mean, it is constant selling, and it's highly competitive. If you can do that, there's so many lessons that can be learned. And so to me, the reason I bring that up is the reason people buy is no different today than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. Listen, they might put more emphasis on the time or the speed because the expectations have changed, but what makes them buy your car versus my car, all right, are the exact same as they were 30 years ago. They're very emotional stuff. We justify our decisions with logic, right? But most of our decisions are made emotionally. And so how's that going to make me feel? How's that car does this for me? We got to get out of, I get frustrated when I hear people think it's like the comment, my market's different.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Selling and selling, right? Selling and selling. I remember an
Correct.
article. I read an article about 3 years ago, and it sounded like today. It sounded like it was just written today, and it was all about the car business, how everything's changed, and this and that and the other. And it was like the article was written 50 years ago. You know, car business is a car business, man. It is, right?
Buddy, that's a NADA general dealership management story.
It is. Exactly.
Yeah, I recognize it because I heard the same story. I forget who pulls it out of their wallet and tells the story, but it was from 1921. That I do know.
Yeah.
And
People,
go ahead, Rob.
they buy from people they trust. They buy from people that they like, and so that hasn't changed. That's
Correct.
never going to change.
No.
I think you can tie that right back to what Brad does going in to turn a store around, right? You're selling the future. You're selling, the brand of leadership and culture that you're bringing to the table. And so it's really no different.
Totally agree, Sandy. Totally agree with you.
All right, Brad, is there anything that you want to say? Is there a case study, a story, or an example you really want to share that might sum all this up? I mean, you gave some great stuff here.
I think good.
You gave stuff. I don't care what industry you're in.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It does not matter. And everything you talked about applies to any industry. We work with a Fortune 25 company. And I got to tell you, when we go out to dinner and we talk about some of the challenges we have, their challenges are the exact same as my own businesses. The exact same. And I'm like, it always blows me away. It doesn't matter what size. It doesn't matter what industry. Everything you said here applies to every single person.
I took three and a half pages of notes so far, buddy. And I get to spend time with you personally. I still got 3.5 pages worth of notes. But what Scott just said is so spot on. A guy years ago that I had the opportunity to listen to speak at a National Speakers Association event. I spoke with him after the event, and this is when I first got my practice started. And he said to me, "What business are you?" And I said, "I'm in the car business." He says, "What are you doing outside of the car business?" I said, "Nothing." And he said to me, "Well, if we took the word car out of car business, what would you have?" And I said, "Like business?" Like I was stumped. He's like, "Exactly." He says, "What's business?" He says, "Business is all about people." And so to your point, Scott, these notes that I took, I'm outside of automotive. 20 to 30% of what we do is outside of automotive. It's all applicable. Everything Brad spoke about here today is applicable regardless of what you're selling or what business you're in. It's about culture. It's about leadership.
Sandy, you ever watch those commercials about the new homeowners becoming their parents?
Absolutely.
Have you seen the latest one where the guy, when you say you take all these notes, where the guy says, "Hey, we don't need to print the internet"? This show is recorded. You can download it.
I can't wait for you. I can't wait for you to publish it. I'm going to put this stuff to work when I get off of the podcast with you, buddy. That's how good this stuff is. This is immediately, but that's a great point, Scott. The stuff that I took notes on here is immediately implementable. So I'm hoping that the folks that do watch this are taking notes because it'll spur great ideas. Brad's given us some really great threads here and ideas to work with.
All right, so let's finish with my last question that I asked you. Is there a story, an example, or any type of case study you want to share that you think would really kind of sum up what we've talked about?
I would say this. About 8 years ago at a store I was at, we came up with our core values. And I've got this core value card. I've got it with me all the time. And it talks about all the core values of the dealership and what's super important in the core values. And that's something that we use here today as well. And we use that as a way to make sure all of us are focusing on all the right things, and it talks about accountability and servant's attitude and teamwork, fun, integrity, continuous improvement. Those are our core values. And I take that with me everywhere I've gone, and because I believe in it. And I think that every store and every organization should have core values. And I think that should be the main part of any training session. No matter what the training session is, one of those core values has to be talked about. And you got to continue to talk about how important, the business is, and how important, if you take care of your employees, the employees will take care of your customers. I'm not worried about customer satisfaction. I'm only worried about employee satisfaction. And as long as you have that in line, everything else takes care of itself. So my challenge would be to everyone is to come up with your core values and talk about them every day. And I think that.
Where did you learn that? Where did you learn that?
We got that at a store, and it was at a dealership I was at, and they brought it to the store and says, hey, we want to build our core values and our mission statement also. So we had our mission statement on one of them, our vision, right, our mission statement, and then the core values. And they presented it and said, hey, this is who we want to become. And we grabbed hold of that and said, we're in. We're all in.
Yeah.
And we start just preaching it and teaching it and talking it. And by golly, having that, doing that, sharing that, having an actual copy of that to where people see it, know it, and believe it, I think that's a big, big part of building a successful team.
I'm going to give you a little tip because we did the core value thing. And by the way, I'll add to what you just said, right? Because I love that. That goes in your interview process. That goes in your performance evaluation conversations.
Yep.
All the things that you said to get people back on track. Everything goes back to why we're here, who we are as people. Usually these are virtues, not necessarily skill sets.
Right.
So I'm a see if I can get it in the
Nice.
camera there, right? We do our cards. These cards we have printed out for each core value. So when we have a person, a teammate that demonstrates honesty and integrity, that person can write to who it's from and a date it and note why they're giving them the honesty and integrity card or the innovative card or the passionate card or the delivers results cards, right? But we do the same. I mean, I love that. When I saw that, I was like, gosh darn, that's why I asked, where'd you learn that? Because I'll tell you where we learned it. We learned it from Traction.
Okay.
The book Traction. And then we hired a consultant to kind of come in and help us. And then we really did a deep dive and drilled down on what our core values were. When we did that, we did not say what we wanted them to be. We drilled down to what they actually were when we were at our best. Right. We didn't sit there and just say, we're going to make up some core values.
Right.
We said, what are our true core values when we are at our best? What are we? Right. And that's how we came up with that process. And it took a couple days.
Yeah, it's a big process. It is. I'd love to get a copy of those, by the way, Scott. That's awesome.
You just took the words right out of my mouth, Brad. So I want both of you to do me the service of sending me what you have. I would love to see it. And I will tell you, Brad, I actually sat in on a couple of J&L meetings. They go over the core values like that. This is not just talk. I've watched it in action with Scott and Jamil and their team. And I know you do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we do, and it sounds kind of silly, but it's not. I mean, it works. Our management team, my department meeting is every Thursday at 10:30, right? And all my department heads, we all have a meeting. We go over all the important things going on in the dealership. But we're reading. We always read a book together, and each week we're reading a chapter of the book. And then at the end of the meeting, we sat down and we go over. It's our book club, right? We go over that chapter, and everyone pitches in on what they got out of that chapter. And it's something that's really, it's been a lot of fun because people get into it, and we're all learning.
I have two questions for you, Mugg. I got two questions. Number one is, what book you guys reading right now?
We're reading Intentional Mindset by Dave Anderson, and it's phenomenal, by the way.
He's Dave. I've never met Dave. I have admired his work.
Oh, you got to go. You got to go to one of his seminars. I went to one last month, and matter of fact, he did a little 30-minute sales meeting for me on the Zoom last week. And the guy's
real deal.
No nonsense. Just knocks it out of the park every time.
Yep, so he's real deal. He is exactly who he says he is, which means he's authentic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes, he really is.
And what has been for you specifically? Maybe the most impactful book you've read and why? I'm just curious.
I do all my books on tape because I did.
I do as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a tough question. But I can tell you this. Probably the most inspirational person for me would be Zig Ziglar. And I want to thank my father for that. When I was 16 years old, my dad made the cassette tapes, the book. Remember the book?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my dad made me listen to that, and I got through the whole thing, and I would really enjoyed it. And he goes, okay, I want you to do me a favor. I go, what's that? He goes, I want you to listen to it again. And I did that, and then he asked me to do it a third time. So as opposed to a book, I'd rather say that. I think Zig Ziglar really touched my life in so many ways, and he was a lot of fun to listen to in my young age.
Yeah, I think audio, video, or the written word it's how you are best able to digest information. Some people it's multiple different ways, but I would echo the sentiment. Jim Rohn is my guy, ROHN, not the guy that called Jim Everett, Chris Everett, but Jim Rohn is that guy for me. I have listened to Jim Rohn's content so often I could recite it. If the guy read Green Eggs and Ham, I would listen to it. But I'm going to give you a quick point, and then Scott, I'll stop talking so you can close out the podcast. I'm sorry. But Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar were colleagues, okay? They actually mentored under a guy who they called the Millionaire Maker. J. Earl Schoaf was their mentor, both Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn. And the third person that mentored under J. Earl Schoaf with them was a woman, very successful, one of the most successful woman entrepreneurs of all time. I'll just say two words to you, and you'll tell me who it is. Pink Cadillac. Mary Kay Cosmetics. Mary Kay Ash. Mary Kay Ash.
I didn't get that.
Well, right? I was still thinking about what he said were his mentors and the people that he admired. And I kept thinking as a childhood friend, he grew up with Napoleon Hill, and I was shocked that he didn't mention him.
Oh, he's the best. By the way, check out the LinkedIn post today from Arnold Casita about the first car ever that was ever manufactured. I want you to take a look at that, Scott, because I left you a little love note on Arnold's post. Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's there. Don't you worry.
All right. Let's close this show. I want to thank Brad Mugg. This was a great interview. I'll tell you, this was real world stuff right here. All right.
Never disappoints, Brad Mugg.
Listen, thank you, because you were very gracious. Not only were you like I've said this before. We've had Lori Holter where we talked, and she's been positioned, but this goes for you too. It's like I don't know what it's looking like on your screen, but on mine, you're in the middle. It's like a rose between two thorns.
You guys are awesome, man. I love hanging out with you guys. I really enjoy you both. You know that.
Listen, you've been very gracious, not only with your knowledge and your experience and your expertise on all this. The tips were outstanding, but just your time today. So that outstanding. I know you're busy.
Yeah, appreciate
so again, thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
I also want to thank the MCC Nation for joining us for this interview about leadership and its impact on getting everyone working for the greater good of not only our clients, but for the business. I'm Scott Joseph. I'm your host, and thanks for joining us. Sandy Cerami, thanks for dropping in as well. The solutionist out of the Garden State of New Jersey, home of Sinatra, home of Bruce Springsteen. Thanks for joining us on Move, Crush, Count. Make sure you also follow and subscribe to the Move, Crush, Count podcast at move.crush.count.com, as well as you can follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter. You can join our groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, where our experts like Brad, like Sandy Cerami, are there, and they can help answer any questions you might have. You'll get notified on all future guests and new episodes. Today's interview was sponsored by J&L Marketing. J&L is a digital and direct marketing agency that delivers results with strategies that help you outsmart competitors so you don't have to outspend them. Remember, you're not going to outsmart competitors by wasting a lot of time trying to figure out what they're advertising. You need to know which offers are actually working, what's their best performing ads, where they're stealing market share from you, and where your biggest opportunities online are. So more importantly, you need this in a quick and easy report that makes sense. I want you to check out jnlmarketing.com. They'll save you hours of time by doing a free competitive analysis that delivers the most actionable, tactical, and timely digital marketing tips you need to move the crowd, crush your competition, and count the money. Have a great day.